So let's take a look at another example like this, just with formulas. So this is composition just with formulas. Kind of see how it works here. So now notice our equations are a bit more complicated, especially f, right? So notice, what does f do when when it takes an input? Well, it uses the input in two different places, right? It uses the input here and it uses the input here, right? So if I want to figure out what f of something is, well, I have to do e to whatever that input is, and then I have to add whatever that input is and square it, right? So if I do that, if I replace my input with g of x, what is here, I would end up writing the square root of x plus 7 here, and I would write the square root of x plus 7 here as well, right? And if I simplify this, the square root of x plus 7 squared, so this whole thing would simplify to e to the square root of x plus 7 plus x plus 7, right? So I had to replace two different inputs. Now what if I do g of f of x? What if I'm replacing the input of g with f of x? Well, where's this input of g? So let's put square brackets around my input of g. There's the only time I use the input. So when g takes an input, what it does is it does the square root of whatever that input is, and then it adds 7 to it. But it's still all under the square root, right? And now what am I replacing the input with? Here the input was x, but what am I replacing the input with? Well, I'm replacing it with this whole thing here. And I didn't really leave myself much space, but I'm going to try to jam it in anyway. So we have an e to the x, and then we add x squared to it. Right? So the big idea with these functions is figure out where, with these composition of functions, I should say, is figure out where you're using your input. Kind of set it away, and then figure out what happens when you replace the input with a whole function.